Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Hitting the Field podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Brener, and today we are turning back the clock. Yes, we are going to look back at some of the most influential drafts in the NBA in the 2010s and give our take on what those drafts would look like if it were to happen today. And I can't do this alone, so I brought two of HTF's best and brightest basketball minds to the podcast today. Mr. Ross Bernstein, Mr. Basketball of HTF, how are you today?
I am doing well. Very excited to do this redraft. It's definitely been a lot of research for this one, a lot of difficult research just because, man, the 2010s are stacked. This is my generation. This is the basketball I've been watching since I turned, 11, which is when I best know basketball. So these draft classes have really shaped my childhood. So I'm really excited to get into these redrafts.
This is the basketball we grew up on.
100%.
So this is what we're talking about today. And Chris Wolf, you're here today. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I mean, I'm just excited to break down what we would draft now.
Because it's very different. It's very different, obviously, in hindsight versus the actual moment. So this is how we've decided to do our mock draft redraft today. So each of us picked a draft class from the 2010s, and we chose this based on how we felt its dynamics and how it contributed to the NBA, and simply its just magnificent funness of it. I don't know, the excitement, the entertainment value that these classes have, and how influential they were for the NBA and how it impacted the future. So we've picked three different draft classes. We're going to go through what we believe is our draft class's lottery picks. And then the other two, we can, go back and forth, debate, figure out whether we agree, figure out whether we disagree, so on and so forth. So we're going to start today with Mr. Ross Bernstein. I will let you, Ross, introduce the draft class that you have selected for today's podcast.
All right. So I have selected the 2011 NBA draft. In my opinion, this is the best draft of this decade. It's really shaped a lot of the champions. Most teams that have won the championships in the past 10 years, at least one or two star players from this draft have been on it for the most part. At least in my quick estimation, 6 to 7 of the years, it was stacked from top to bottom. It's very difficult to get a top lottery picks, the top 14 picks from this, because you could argue there's 30 players here that still to this day have an impact on their team, which for a draft almost 10 years ago is not an easy task. Within 10 years, a lot of players just simply are out of the league. It's a very wishy-washy league. It's very, very deep draft.
A lot of guys still from this draft class are contributing.
They're running the NBA
late
in
20s,
a lot of the ways.
Early 30s. They are, and they're like strong, and they're playing for contending teams as well.
100%.
So, Kyrie Irving went first in this draft to Cleveland. This was the first year without. They had 1 year, I guess, without LeBron, and then they sunk to the bottom of the league. They get Kyrie Irving. Do you have Kyrie Irving at number one in your redraft?
I do not have Kyrie Irving at number one in my redraft.
So if you don't have Kyrie, who takes the top spot going to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I have the Claw, Kawhi Leonard. In my opinion, could be the best basketball player in the league right now. I love LeBron. I love Giannis. But I think Kawhi, when he is locked in, which usually doesn't come to playoff time, as we saw last year, is unstoppable. He's the number one player in this league. I have Kawhi at number one. And I think it's just because he has the ability, maybe unlike a Kyrie, that he can lead the team by himself. And that simply enough is the reason he's the number one player. Yeah, number two is my interesting. Go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I want to hear your number two first.
Okay, so number two is there was really only two options for this if you look at this draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can either go Klay Thompson or Kyrie Irving. Now, if you've ever listened to it Hitting the Field podcast in the previous 6 to 7 months, I think you could guess who I'm going with here second. I'm going with Klay Thompson. Now, I know it. I've always said this, and I will continue to say this. Kyrie Irving has superstar talent, but is not a superstar player. By that, I mean I don't think he'll lead a team by himself to a championship. And what I'll say is Klay Thompson is the perfect second option, and Kyrie Irving is one of the worst first options. And that's just the reason I'm going with Klay second. He's arguably part of the greatest dynasty to have ever played a basketball besides the 90s Bulls. Without Klay Thompson, I think it's easy to argue that they don't get one championship. He is the better version of just a second option. He just gets done what he needs to get done. While Kyrie Irving has really a trouble as being a second option and just can't succeed as a first option, in my opinion. And I haven't seen anything else to fight this opinion, just simply because even though he can't hit the clutch shots and he has that gene, he has that. He has that thing that you look for in basketball players. He just cannot lead a team to a championship. So I just have to give Klay number 2.
Yeah, I think, Chris, I want to hear your opinion on this. What do you think of Kawhi number 1 and Klay number 2 and Kyrie knocked out of the top 2?
I totally agree with Kawhi number 1. He's obviously the best player, and he's one of the top 3 players in the league right now, and he is the best defensive player in the league too.
100%.
So that one I agree with. Number 2, that's a very tough one. To be honest, I don't know if it was an argument between Klay and Kyrie. I might have actually put Jimmy Butler over Kyrie.
Ooh.
Because Jimmy Butler plays both ways at a high level, and you can see when Jimmy Butler is on a team, they're a playoff contending team. When he's left, the team has actually gotten worse. Like, Chicago got worse. Minnesota got worse. Even Philly got worse this year. And he has Miami as a top 4 seed after everyone thought maybe they could be a bubble playoff team this year.
I got you.
That's
a
very good point Chris just made about Jimmy Butler.
100%.
But, Ross, it seemed like you were alluding to considering you had between Kyrie and Klay at number 2.
Yes.
It looks like Kyrie fell to number 3. Is that
Kyrie did fall to number 3. Kyrie did fall to number 3. So I just have to put Kyrie over Jimmy just because of the championship. And I feel like Kyrie is just, when he's on and he's locked in and he has chemistry with his team, which is a lot of ifs, he's one of the most versatile offensive players we've ever seen in this league. So it's very hard for me not to give him number 3, and he has a championship. Whether or not it's a LeBron championship, it's just hard for me to give him. And obviously, between me and Chris, there's more Heat fandom than you'll ever need in this podcast. So what Jimmy's doing for us, I have to applaud every single day. Mm-hmm. But I just have to give Kyrie the 3rd spot. He's just, like I said, he's just too talented. Whether or not I like his antics, I have to give him 3rd.
I agree with that. Strong top 3. And I think the reason why Kawhi and I guess in some sense Jimmy Butler, I mean, not necessarily Jimmy Butler, but more Kawhi. Kawhi was not seen as like a guy that could lead a team. He was a safe role player. And for the most part, in the beginning of his career, Kawhi was just that, a role player.
Mm-hmm.
At the top of the draft, you look for guys that you believe can get you 20 points a game. You believe can be, strong, defensive centerpieces. And I don't think Kawhi was necessarily seen as someone like that coming out of college. Whereas Derek Williams and Enes Kanter were seen as those kind of people. And, it's funny just how this draft kind of just, a lot of the tables were turned. This is a very deep draft because a lot of the second round picks, the late first round picks ended up making it. And not just making it, but, being in like all-star status, multi-time all-stars. So now we have Cleveland number 4, Ross. They go and they get Kawhi. Did you take that into consideration, who they drafted before, and did that affect who they would draft at their second pick?
Honestly, no, I did not take that into consideration. Usually when I do the redrafts, I kind of just go with the picks. But now in hindsight, looking at that could have changed my 4th pick. But I'm going to go with what I originally had as my 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I see what you mean. But I have as my 4th Jimmy Butler just as the best player. But if I maybe had to consider what you're saying, and since Cleveland did pick 1 and 4, my 5th pick was Kemba. Mm-hmm. And I think Kemba would be the perfect point guard for a Kawhi-led team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kemba's worked in a smaller – we've seen him work in Charlotte where he could be the man. But now that he's in Boston, you could see him with a player like a Tatum, who I think we all know Tatum eventually is going to take over that team. I think it's just a matter of time. You could see him – not that Kemba's the second fiddle, but he has a better way of moving the ball and spreading with a team than maybe a Kyrie does. Where Kyrie, even though they're both ball dominant players, Kemba's more willing to sacrifice the touches. I think that's the right way to say it. He's willing to sacrifice the touches.
That combination would be lethal.
Yes, would be lethal. Even though having Jimmy and Kawhi, you might as well just only average 90 points a game in this NBA. If you have Jimmy at the 2 and Kawhi at the 3, that's just lockdown.
That is true.
And Jimmy is a competitor. So I think if we learn anything in Miami, he just, as long as you want to win and as long as you are trying, he'll make it work. That was his issue with the kids. I don't want to say kids because they're obviously older than me, but the younger players in Minnesota. He didn't see that I don't know if I can say Kobe-esque thing. He couldn't see their desire to win. Obviously, they're competitors; they want to win. But there's that next level that Jimmy takes it to, where if you pair that with a Kawhi, who we all know has that. He doesn't have to say anything. You can see it in the fact that he says nothing, is a competitor. But I think maybe I just think Jimmy Butler is the best player at 4, so I gave him 4.
Curious to see if they got Kawhi and if they got Jimmy Butler, would LeBron have returned a couple years later? I don't know.
I mean, it seems like maybe not in the matchups wise because that's 3 essential wings, but with those 2 defensive guys, that takes a lot of load off LeBron. He could guard the 3rd best player on the court. And that alone is very, very tempting because LeBron can shut down a lot of players. But when I got to guard the 3rd best player on the court, that's it. I might take that.
Yeah, because most teams don't really have 2 All-Stars. So it's like
let alone
you could be guarding potentially just a regular role player.
That Cavs team could have been dangerous. But now we move on to number 5, Toronto. Okay. And they selected Jonas Valanciunas in the original draft, but do you have that in the redraft, Ross?
No, I think they go with Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is showing himself to be one of the top point guards in this league. And we thought maybe it was only because he was in Charlotte, and no offense to Charlotte, he was basically the only player that we knew most of the time. But now going to Boston, he is surpassing most people's expectations beyond what anyone could ever expect. Coming out of UConn, maybe we thought he was a little undersized, and they didn't think he'd be as overachieving as he is, but I think Kemba is just the best player, 5th in this whole draft. And it's, to me, the drop-off between 5 and 6, in my opinion, is where we start seeing not a stern decline, but definitely where you go from the all-stars to the really, really, really good role players. So I think Kemba's 5.
So to start this draft out, you have Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson at number 2, and then you have Kyrie Irving at number 3.
Yes.
Jimmy Butler number 4.
Yep.
Kemba Walker number 5.
Yes.
That is a scary lineup. If that were a starting 5, that'd be easily the best starting 5 in the league. I don't think you could put 5 guys there.
You don't even need a big. You'll figure it out.
No,
they run the Houston offense.
Because that team is so solid defensively as well as and so prolific on the offensive end. That's just is asking for trouble if you want.
As long as Kyrie doesn't make everyone angry,
yeah. So I think it's safe to say that those 5 are in a tier of their own. Yes. There really isn't any other guy that you can argue would be in the top tier. I think those 5 are far and away the best 5 in this draft. So now we get to number 6 in Washington. Washington took Jan Vesely in the draft, and that was considered to be one of the bigger busts. He only lasted until 2014 in the NBA, went to Turkey for Fenerbahce, and has played there since. But Ross, who do the Wizards take in the redraft?
So with the 6th overall pick, the Washington Wizards select Jan Vesely again. No, I'm kidding. We're taking Tobias Harris.
Tobias Harris.
Okay.
Yes.
Very interesting selection there. So
yes.
Go ahead. Why Tobias Harris?
So this is where we start getting into the first 5, like you said, super easy picks. Not in what order, but those are the top 5. Now we're getting into the role players that could be your 2nd, 3rd options on a really, really, really good team, or if not a championship team. To me, Tobias Harris is what the NBA looks for now in a quote-unquote big man. He could shoot. He's a solid 3-and-D player, and he knocks it down. He knocks it down on both sides of the court. He could play defense on most 2 through 4 positions, especially with this NBA. The 4s nowadays are basically just a little oversized 3s. and he could spread the floor. With what's happening today in the NBA and the fact that every year it seems like Tobias has gotten a little bit better. Obviously, he's hit some bigger jumps when going from in Orlando. He started off as more of a lower role player, but then got to a higher level. And now he's obviously killing it where he is.
Mhm.
I just think comparatively, he's the sixth best player in the draft because he just fits in this modern NBA, and he has great longevity. I think he'll be in the NBA for a long time because once you have the ability to knock it down at his size, it's something they can't take away.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think about Tobias Harris going number 6?
I agree with that. I think he said if he fits the NBA nowadays, it's a 3-point shooting league, and he is the best player, just all around player left, and he's also arguably the better shooter left too. I mean, he shoots at close to 40% around. So that's for someone at his size to shoot at that clip, that's hard to guard. And he can also drop 20, 25 on any given night too. So that's what. It may be a little more improvement on defense, but I mean, defense doesn't really exist as much nowadays than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
I think Tobias Harris has struggled throughout his career. He hasn't been in a position to be a number 1 option.
No.
He's always been a high number 2 option or a high number 3 option. I mean, there have been times where, in LA with the Clippers, he was able to show off some, star potential, but I wouldn't have considered him the superstar on that team. Nor, and even when he was in Orlando, he wasn't. He didn't take over that superstar role because I don't think he was really given the opportunity to. I think he had the potential, and it just was never tapped into enough. He's been traded so many times, for players that are not as good as him.
Yeah.
And he's always been on the side of a team, I feel like, that's looking to buy pieces and not a team that's looking to trade pieces, and they just see him as the best trade chip left.
He's a great trade chip is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
He's a stretch 4, perfectly fit for the modern day, and every team wants a 3 indeed. But he's just got to cement a role in the league as a solid third option, in my opinion.
Well, yeah,
he could be a really good third option, a really good team. It's a championship
the Sixers signed him to a 5-year, $180 million contract. So I don't think we're going to be I don't think we're going to be trading him anytime soon. So
you never know in this NBA, but yeah.
You never know. That's correct. So number 7, the Sacramento Kings are on the clock here. They traded this pick in a massive trade, in a 3-team trade with Milwaukee, the Kings, and at the time the Charlotte Bobcats. But this pick ultimately went to Charlotte, and that was Bismack Biyombo. So this pick, just to keep things uniform, this pick is going to Charlotte. So who is going to Charlotte with the number 7 pick?
I'm gonna stay with the Orlando thing. I'm going Nikola Vucevic.
Nikola Vucevic.
Yes, I know.
Very good pick considering Charlotte needed a center.
Yes, 100%. I just think Nikola Vucevic, even though he's more of a quote-unquote old-school player, he likes to work on the post. He's fairly mobile for a big man. He's just the best next player available. Obviously, there's players like Jonas Valanciunas I could have possibly put as a big man there, or even Enes Kanter. I just feel like Vucevic has just been such a consistent player, and even though the NBA doesn't particularly fit his style anymore, he still manages to be a solid 20 and 10 guy on most nights. Mm-hmm. And he's just a highly, highly, highly skilled big man. He can score multiple ways on the block. He's solid enough defensively. I would never say he's a stopper, but I just think he's the next best player available. And obviously, this is where it's starting to get nitpicky, right? You get a Valanciunas, you get an Isiah Thomas. There's a million things I could have done, but I just think Vucevic is the next best player.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what are your thoughts about Orlando's Nikola Vucevic actually being drafted by the Charlotte Bobcats at 7?
I like it because they needed a big, and he was the best big. I mean, you did have Valanciunas, you did have Kanter, you also had Tristan Thompson too. So kind of had mm-hmm. you had a good variety of bigs you could choose from that are have been pretty successful in this league. But I think Vucevic is probably the best because of his I think all around, and he's also became a better jump shooter. He's stepped behind the 3-point line now too, so he can hit a couple of threes if you need
in the
him
corner.
to.
Yeah, if need be.
Yes, and I mean, look, 3 of the first 7 picks in this draft were centers. Could
Yes.
you? I don't think we'll ever see that again.
No. Centers are. It's a dying breed in this league. This isn't 10 years ago, and it's amazing how quickly the NBA has changed. A lot of these players would not even be considered. They'd be like, oh, he's just going to block the entire paint. What is this going to do? A lot of these guys had to adapt, right? And as Cantor, he can knock down a corner 3 if need be. Same thing with Vucevic. Tristan Thompson has just fought that whole trend. But obviously that's going to be reflected on how they're doing nowadays.
I guess in 2015, Towns, Okafor, and Porzingis were in the top 4 picks. 3 of the top 4 picks were centers, but other than that, we really haven't seen a whole lot of that in the drafts where centers go very high. So yeah, I mean, I guess in 2018 we also had 3 centers go in the first 7 picks with Ayton, Bamba, and Wendell Carter Jr. So I mean, yeah, but also like keep in mind like Mo Bamba is in a weird spot in Orlando right now, and Wendell Carter plays more like a power forward. He's like a small ball center almost at 6'9". So that's kind of where
it's the new day centers.
Yeah, it's the new day center. So let's move on quickly here. We got to move to number 8, where the Pistons are on the clock. They took Brandon Knight in the original draft. I'm guessing that it's not Brandon Knight on the redraft.
As much as Brandon Knight is one of the best players come out of Miami in a while, I'm gonna go with Mr. Irrelevant himself, Isiah Thomas.
Interesting.
Isaiah Thomas should be in this league and should be given a better shot. I'm gonna start off with that and just say it as simple as possible. This man is an offensive juggernaut. Of course, he's only about 5'8", 5'9". He's gonna be defensive liability. But a lot of players' defensive liabilities. He could average over 20 points a game on a given team today, and I truly believe that. When given a chance, he can do it. Is he going to be the all-star point guard on your team that's going to lead you to a championship? No. But can he be a really, really, really solid second option at a point guard, or maybe even a point guard with a really good shooting guard? Yeah, I think Isiah Thomas is very underrated. It has a lot to do with his height, and I feel like he's just the next best player available in this draft. Just simply because of what he can do when given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And let's move quickly to number 9.
Yes, I got Jonas Valanciunas.
Valanciunas going number 9 to Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So they take Nikola Vucevic and Valanciunas. So that's 2 of the same position. That sounds like something Charlotte would do. They love their men.
Yes, they do.
Especially their white big men.
Yes, I don't know what it is about Charlotte. I don't know if Michael Jordan knows something we don't, but whatever.
That's true.
That is. Yep.
So let's recap so far from the top. So we have Kawhi at number 1 to Cleveland, Klay Thompson number 2 to Minnesota, Kyrie number 3 to Utah, Jimmy Butler number 4 to Cleveland, Kemba Walker number 5 to Toronto, Tobias Harris number 6 to Washington. Number 7 was Vucevic to Charlotte. And number 8 was Isiah Thomas to Detroit. And then number 9 was Valanciunas to Charlotte. All right. So let's keep moving forward. Number 10. This pick was Jimmer Fredette, who was probably the biggest star in college basketball that year. And he went number 10, out of the league now. But who is your number 10 right now, Ross?
I got Bojan Bogdanovich.
Interesting. So they get a sharpshooter, just a different sharpshooter.
Yeah. I just think Bojan is a really solid player in this league, right? He does exactly what another 3-and-D guy. Mm-hmm. If you're able to knock it down in this league at a consistent rate, you'll be able to stay in this league a very long time, right? And that's just simple enough. And he's one of those players I like because it seems like he knows his role. That's a lot of issue with players in the NBA. They want to be superstars. They want to be the best player on the team. I think Bojan knows exactly why he's on this team. He's here to knock down shots, play solid defense, and average 14 to 16 points a game. No more, no less. Do your job. And I think he's just one of the most solid role players you could have on a team.
He's 31, and he was drafted in 2011, did not come into the NBA until 2014.
Yes.
Has played for Brooklyn, has played for Washington, Indiana, now Utah. And he's been as his career has progressed, he's gone from role player to full-on necessary player, to go.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, he was a star for that Utah team, and when he was declared out for the rest of the season, it almost was like Utah's title hopes kind of went with it.
Yeah, it definitely did because he was a second leading scorer. I believe he was averaging 20 a game this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that and look at the contract he has with Utah. That is maybe the most favorable contract in the entire league for a 20-point scorer. He's getting paid I believe less than $20 million a year.
Yeah.
To average 20 a game.
4 years, $73 million is about 18, a little bit more than $18 million a year.
I mean, for 20 points a game, you're getting about a little over 18 a year. 18 million a year for 20 points a year. That is the most generous contract in the league. And to lose that type of offense and shooting, I lost all hope in Utah when that happened. I was like, I don't know if Utah even get out of the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to get back. It's hard to recover from that.
I think it's a good pick from you, Ross. I really like that pick. Yeah, 20 points a game for a guy that's averaging 20 points a game in his age 31 year or his age 30 season. That's pretty impressive and
very
definitely
impressive.
Worthy of a lottery pick here. Top 10 pick.
Made the top 10.
So, yeah, let's move on now to number 11.
Yes.
Where the Golden State Warriors are on the clock. They took Klay Thompson in the first draft.
He's far from gone. He is gone.
He gone. So who do they go with?
I have still the best player available. I'm going with Enes Kanter. I know that's a bit of a controversial pick, but when Enes Kanter, like I said, he's very much built for this league now that he could shoot threes. His defense is horrendous. I don't know another way to say that. It is horrendous. But offensively, he's very versatile. And I think the Golden State Warriors, especially with the rest of the team they'll build around him with the Draymond, especially with the Draymond, Enes Kanter is a perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He could stretch and he could do offensively and whatever defensively needs to be fixed, Draymond and I guess Clay's not there, but Draymond will be able to fix. Enes Kanter is horrible defensively. I'll say that one more time. But he's a very skilled offensive player that it seemed, and also on the intangibles, it seems like he's always a joy for the team and a joy for the community. It seems like if you follow his Instagram page, he's always helping out the community and doing stuff around the community, which I know is not exactly part of a redraft, but it's just a good dude to have on a team. And I think he's still the best player available, Enes Kanter with the 11th pick.
Yeah, and at this point in the NBA timeline, the Warriors don't have Andrew Bogut, who is their primary starter for their, first half of their dynasty. So they needed a center. So that's a good pick in terms of need, especially in a very center-heavy draft. They definitely needed a guy like that. So good pick there at number 11 with Enes Kanter going to the Warriors. But who do you have at number 12 going to the Utah Jazz?
I got Marcus Morris. This was a difficult one for me because I always have a problem discerning the two Morris twins, not only because they're the same height, basically the same height, they play the same position, and they play very similarly. They're not very different in any way, which is, I guess, why they would be twins. But I think Marcus Morris just has more of the just a little more longevity. He's playing great right now where he is, and I just think he's the better of the twins. And once again, he's just very adaptable to this league. He's not exactly a typical he could play the 4 if need be. He's more of an old-fashioned 3, but he's another 3-and-D guy. And I've said that a million times, but that's just where the league is. Can you shoot and can you defend for a team? Because the Warriors have built that entire way of playing. So I just think he's the next best player on the board. Always a solid contribution, and it's always good to have a dude on your team that's willing to fight. I don't know if that's a good stat to say, but someone that's willing to scrap and stand up for your team is always a good guy to have. You need to have the guy that takes it on the chin. And that is for sure Marcus Morris.
Yeah, I remember when they came out of the draft and people were saying that Marcus was the superior twin, and people were surprised that Markieff was the first Morris twin off the board. So That to me was surprising. I was happy that Marcus Morris fell to the Rockets, of course, but I was surprised that Marcus was drafted after Markieff. And at the beginning of the career, Markieff kind of proved why he was the first twin drafted. He had a better start to his career than Marcus did. But as the career has gone on, Marcus has proven to be the better player. He's the one that's currently on a roster. Markieff Morris got waived earlier this year. Marcus Morris got signed for $20 million this past offseason. So to me, that is a telltale sign of who is the more valued player. That would, to me, would be Marcus Morris. So I think that's a good pick from you on the redraft, Ross. But let's finish this out with number 13 and number 14, and then we can give our thoughts on the draft as a whole.
All right, so this is where it got really tough for me because there's a lot of players you could put at the end of this draft just because there's just so many players. But for 13 and 14, I'm going with 13 Tristan Thompson. And I know 14th might be a little controversial because he didn't last long, but Nikola Mirotic.
Interesting.
As much as Tristan Thompson has been a drama off and on the court, he's still a 10-10 guy. Solid if used right, even though he just doesn't want to adapt. He's still a great player. So I have him at 13.
That's true.
He's just a very solid guy. He'd be good to have off the bench. I wouldn't start him, but obviously Cleveland, they'll start anyone. So we'll take him at 13. And 14 was a very difficult pick because I had a lot of guys. I could say their names. You could have a Reggie Jackson. You could have Markieff. You could have even old school Chandler Parsons. But I went with Nikola Mirotic, even though I know, and I don't even know if he's in the league right now. I think I'm not sure. Oh, he's very close.
He's not. Nikola Mirotic would be in the league.
He went to Barcelona. He went to
Barcelona. He would be in the league though if he wanted to. That's the total decision on his own. He had NBA offers, but he opted to go to Barcelona.
Yeah, he had one season where he just seemed to make every single shot for the Pelicans, and I was like, okay, another great stretch guy, nice overseas player. I just think when he put his mind to it, I don't know why he went to Barcelona. I don't really remember. I don't know if it was for family reasons or money reasons.
They paid him 26 million euros.
That would be it.
He's the highest paid player in Europe right now.
Okay, well there you go. But I just think he's such a great player on a team and would help be just another guy. Maybe not the D part, but definitely a 3-point stretch. And he's a knockdown shooter when he's hot. I just think he's the last best player available in the draft. But it was really difficult, can I say, for this 14th pick. I had Reggie Jackson possibly there, one of the more underrated point guards, a great second option. You could have a Corey Joseph there, Chandler Parsons, even a Kenneth Faried. But I just think when Nikola Mirotic was on, he's one of the most valuable players to a team, especially with this NBA. But it was very difficult, that last pick. That one took a lot of thinking.
I would be surprised if Nikola Mirotic wasn't in the lottery, to be honest. I think he definitely deserves to be in the lottery.
Stacked draft. You could easily have been out. I promise you.
Chris,
this whole draft.
Chris, do you agree with these picks, or would you have inserted someone else in place of another?
I actually agree with all the players. All the players drafted, I agree with them because, especially Mirotic being the last one, because every team needs that type of like sixth-man guy that come off the bench and give you scoring, and that's something he can do. I've always thought sixth-man is a lottery pick, in my opinion. Even if it's not like a top 10 pick, it's a lottery pick.
Right.
It's very, very valuable to have. Like every team needs that person. Like look at the teams that have won championships. Like the last championship, the Raptors. Like Fred VanVleet was a six-man type person. He came up clutch in the NBA Finals. Then you had Andre Iguodala when the Warriors won the first one. He came up big as like that six-man role, and he won Finals MVP. So like teams that have those like players are very valuable.
I agree. I think that I think I don't have a problem with any of the picks that you made, Ross. If I had to change one of these picks, maybe I take out. I think they're all really good picks. If I had to take out one pick, maybe I take out Enes Kanter. and I insert. You take Enes Kanter, maybe you put in a Reggie Jackson or
I think if anyone could be taken out to me, it might be Tristan Thompson just because of the way the league put. I rather if I had to pick between an Enes Kanter and a Tristan Thompson, because they're very similar players in a way, I'm taking Enes Kanter. But I could see Reggie Jackson was very tough to take out because I think he's very underappreciated.
Honestly, I think if we did this draft maybe a year or two in the future, maybe I would take out one of those guys and put in Davis Bertans.
Bertans has been
he's
been a knockdown guy.
I mean, 100%. he came into the league in 2017. He still played in Europe for 6 years, but he's averaging 15 points a game this season in his first real, and he's playing 29 minutes a game, so he's getting legit minutes. I think maybe he would be someone that could be on this in this draft lottery if we did this maybe a year or two down the line. He's in a great position right now in Washington where he can be a scorer, a starter. He's 42% from 3-point land. I have no problem with him being, one of the honorable mentions, but maybe we could see him rise up on these draft boards in a few years from now. So now let's move on to our second draft that we are going to break down, our part 2 of 3 for this podcast. Chris Wolf, it's up to you. I'm going to let you introduce the draft class you chose to have for this podcast.
Okay. So I chose the 2014 NBA draft class.
2014.
So that's what I'm going to be breaking down.
So let's get started. 2014, a very unique draft with a lot of international stars, a lot of controversial picks, and to be honest, we have only 2 All-Stars out of the bunch, which, surprisingly, I feel like people, when they think of the 2014 class, they think of much more successful class. And I think that the success in the 2014 class isn't seen by the titles that these people have won, but more so in the numbers that they've put up.
Mm-hmm.
There's some real solid players in this draft, and I can't wait to break it down. But we'll start at the top of the draft. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they just signed, they're a week or two away from signing LeBron James. And another disclaimer, the choices from the 2011 draft are absolutely separate from this timeline we're creating. We're starting this timeline from 2014 onwards. The picks will stay the same. We're not simulating through the years from 2011 to 14. We are simply looking at 2014 and going from there. So, Chris, number 1 pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers select.
This was actually a little tougher than I thought, but I'm going to go with the more talented person. I'm going to pick Joel Embiid, number 1.
Joel Embiid, and he probably should have been the number 1 pick in this draft, but his injuries were a big red flag for Cleveland, and ultimately why they passed up on him.
Oh yeah, I agree with that because he didn't play the first couple of years because of injuries, really. So that was very alarming because when you have a guy like LeBron coming back, it's like you want to have at least somebody there, and he was not going to be there for at least part of the time.
Right.
But now seeing him now, you draft Embiid, you keep him. You don't trade him. You don't trade that pick to Minnesota for Kevin Love. You would keep this pick, I think. You would keep this pick. Because Joel Embiid's better than Kevin Love.
Right.
Because he plays both ways.
Interesting idea to think about it. Ross, if you are the GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2014, knowing what you know now, do you take Joel Embiid, do you take Andrew Wiggins, or do you take someone else?
So this might be a little, I don't know if it's outside the ordinary, but I'm taking Nikola Jokic.
That was my tough decision. That's was the tough decision.
Because I can see where your decision lies. Do I go with Embiid when healthy is the better player out of the 2? Not by a large margin, but by a decent enough margin. He's the best big man in this league when he's healthy. The only issue is it seems like the best ability will always be to the end of time availability.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had to pair someone with LeBron, I don't think any better pairing as a big man is better than Nikola Jokic. I know it's hard to say if they would have traded him probably. So I don't want to say that. But I think the fact that Jokic seemingly is getting better and not as injury prone.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good Embiid is healthy, he's never healthy. That's my one issue. So I just think Jokic, and right now he's looking, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him recently, he looks like he must be down another 15, 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
When he is on and he is in good basketball shape, because it seems like sometimes he's huffing and puffing up the court looking like me playing at a rec game. But when he seems like he's in basketball shape, he's the second best center in the league, and it's him and Embiid, which goes to show how big this draft class was. But I'm going to go with the guy that's available. I'd go with Nikola Jokic personally, but not by a large margin.
Joel Embiid found the weight that Nikola Jokic lost.
100%. Found the burgers and whatever pregame snacks he would be eating.
If it were up to me, I would take Joel Embiid number one. I agree with Chris. I think he would have been the number one pick had the injury concerns, the red flags not been there. And even now, Joel Embiid, a lot of his career has been kind of marred by injuries, I feel, and has kind of held him back. But if we're looking at pure talent, pure potential, it's Joel Embiid number one for me.
Okay, 100%.
Number two, the Milwaukee Bucks are on the clock. Chris, you're drafting for them. Who do you take?
This is no brainer. It's Nikola Jokic. Number two, that pairing with Giannis would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Yeah, Giannis is just after year one with the Bucks. It's interesting how we said in the last draft how you're not going to see too many centers drafted. And here we are in the 2014 drafting two centers, 1 and 2. But, I mean, the thing with Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic is they're a good modern-day center. They can play all positions. They can pass. They can shoot from distance. They can rebound. They're good defensively in the post. They're good defensively on the perimeter. So that they have evolved with the position, and they are the best two at it, which is why I have absolutely no brainer with these two at the top two of the draft.
Yeah, same top two. Just I reversed the order. Yeah.
So we have This is the first tier. There is nobody that's really in this tier. But who do we get number 3 with Philly on the clock?
This one was a little tough, but it was so tough. I might get bad. I'm gonna go with Aaron Gordon slightly.
Ooh,
slightly.
Chris, I cannot say that I agree with you on this one.
I cannot say that either.
All right, Ross, can you explain your disagreement?
So, I did a slight mock draft also for 2014. I just feel like I could name a couple players better than Aaron Gordon. I still think Wiggins is the third best player in this draft.
Oh, I disagree.
I think I know who you're going to go with. I could be wrong, but I think I know who you're going to go with.
I think Zach LaVine would be the pick here.
I think that's who you're going to go with.
That's who I was going. I was between Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. I was just like,
Zach LaVine is the best scorer left amongst the players not selected. So that to me is why Zach LaVine goes here. He's the only player really left that is the face of their team. There's really only 3 faces of the franchise. I mean, I guess if you want to call Julius Randle the face of the Knicks, we can. So three and a half faces of the franchise in this draft. And that is kind of who I look at when I think of who should go number 1, who should go at the top of the draft is people who would dramatically have their team and franchise change if they were not part of it. Similar to Jimmy Butler. Like Jimmy Butler, when he left Chicago, the Bulls got worse. When he left Minnesota, the Wolves got worse. I think if Zach LaVine left Chicago, the Bulls would get worse.
There's no team.
So that's why I would put LaVine number 3. But explain more why Aaron Gordon goes number 3 here, Chris.
I'm going with more of like just the all around. He can shoot from outside some. He can score. He's really good defensively. He sells tickets too with highlights.
Fair enough.
It's true.
I think that also is something. Box office is sometimes what these picks do. And I think box office would give something like a team like Philly Philly likes to have box office. I mean, AI box office. Even if they didn't win even if they win a championship, with box office, he sold tickets. He could have been like that.
That's true.
I see where you're going there. I just think I have Wiggins there. I think we all have a different pick. But to me, Wiggins is one of the more underappreciated scorers in this league. And if given a really good chance, he could be one of the top maybe 15, 20 scorers in this league. I think he's a better scorer than Aaron Gordon. Rebounding, I'm going to have to give to Aaron Gordon just because it's simply high. But it seems like Aaron Gordon never really hit that next level, right? It seemed like after his first, even though he lost to Levine's first dunk contest, it seemed like he was ready for his next level because he just has all the physical gifts you could ever ask for in a player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this year specifically is the reason Wiggins is getting my pick. Wiggins is having a really, really good year. He's starting to shut up the haters because a lot of people said, "Oh, he's just." Although I don't think he's the number one pick in this draft, he's showing out and shutting down the doubters a little bit. Where I feel like Gordon's not. He's kind of succumbing to the I'm going to be a really good player, get paid, and I don't have the ambition to be a championship player. I don't know if that makes sense. It seems like he's very content at where he is. Where I think Wiggins is still attempting to improve and trying to maybe show people why he was the number one pick. I just think he's the third best player in the league. Third best player in the draft. I apologize. Third best player in the draft. But it's by fingernails between the next couple picks. I feel like it's just by a little tiny bit.
I think look, hey, it's finally time that Aaron Gordon gets the better of Zach LaVine. That's all I gotta say. So, number 4 on your list, the Orlando Magic, they select.
I go Zach LaVine here.
Zach LaVine, yeah.
I go Zach LaVine.
Good call. I mean, they do have Victor Oladipo and they play similar positions, but I don't think that's much of an issue here. The Magic need scorers, and I think that's part of the reason why they haven't been in the top of the East for so long, because they've gotten a lot of guys that are just kind of there. They don't have a lot of scorers, playmakers, and Zach LaVine is that definition of a playmaker, scorer, bona fide, can get you 25 a night, and the Orlando Magic have not had a guy like that since T-Mac, I want to say.
Yeah, and also that pick is also justified that Zach LaVine's a two-way player. He could play defense. Like, that's something Andrew Wiggins can't do, really.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I have Zach LaVine over him, is the defense.
All right. So Zach LaVine Aaron Gordon goes 3, Zach LaVine goes 4. Number 5, the Utah Jazz are on the clock. Who do they go with here?
I will go. This is where I put Andrew Wiggins because you can't justify scoring, and Utah has always been known to be a very good defensive team. But now they have a score. Now they can have some offense to show for, so to help counter that defense. Even though Wiggins isn't a great defensive player, but they have enough good. Usually, Utah is always a good defensive team as a team, so it would be a plus for them to add scoring.
That's true. So, Ross, where do you have Andrew Wiggins?
Well, I had Wiggins at 3rd. I had Wiggins at 3. I agree LaVine at 4th. Now, my 5th pick is a little – I have to vouch a little.
Yeah.
I have Aaron Gordon at 6th. But at 5th, I have T.J. Warren.
All right, T.J. Warren. I was wondering when T.J. Warren was going to go. I didn't think it'd be as high as 5, but I'm not necessarily complaining there.
No, he's, in my opinion, if statistically wise, he's not far from an Aaron Gordon, right? Aaron Gordon might be the better player statistically wise, but the fact that T.J. Warren is maybe a better role player is I'll give him over Aaron Gordon. He's a better shooter. He shoots over 50% from the field, and let alone he shoots around, I think, 38% from 3. But he's always a consistent 18, 19-point scorer, at least over the past 3 years, and he's consistently improving. That's kind of where I like to give a lot of bonus points to. Where it seems like Aaron Gordon's reached a plateau. T.J. Warren just gets better and better every single year, right? He improves something. If not his shooting, it's his overall points percentage. He's averaging about 19 points over the last 3 years, and I think he just will fit a team better as a role player than Aaron Gordon would fit as a star player, if that makes sense. He knows his role. He knows what he needs to do. And I really like TJ Warren. So there is bias there. But he's my 5th pick. So that's my rounded out top 5. I leave Aaron Gordon at the 6th.
Chris, is TJ Warren going number 6 to Boston?
This is actually maybe, believe it or not, this is actually the first one. I'm actually going to keep the pick.
Interesting. I think this is the first time we've kept the pick in this podcast with Marcus Smart going to Boston.
Because I believe he is just that it factor to a team. He's a heart and soul of a team. And even though the stats may not say that, he may be maybe only averaging 10, 12 points a game, but he is one of the best defensive guards in the league.
Mm-hmm.
He can guard both guard positions. You could maybe put him on a small forward if it's a small person, like a 6'4", 6'5". You can even put him on one of those. He can guard maybe up to 3 positions, and he's just a leader. He's a leader for that team. He's been the heart and soul of the Celtics the last couple of years. I mean, and he just makes winning plays, and that is why. And that, in my opinion, can overtake some stats.
And do you think, could you ever imagine Marcus Smart in a different uniform?
No.
I think he's going to be in Boston for a long time, 10, 12 years to be in Boston. He's already made it 6 years, so why can't he go another 6? But Chris, let's keep this going with number 7. The Los Angeles Lakers are on the clock. So who do they select with the number 7 pick?
Oh, this one is.
This is starting to get a little difficult.
It is difficult. But even though this might not be the name, yes, TJ Warren at 7 would be mine because I've just liked how he plays. He has just gotten better each year. He gets better each year. I mean, he was playing for Phoenix for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's you didn't really get to see. You don't really get to see players like that play because all Phoenix really was Devin. Right now, it's Devin Booker while he was there. So it's you're seeing all that. He got overshadowed, but now he's in Indiana, and he has been a very great addition to that team. And why Indiana still, even with Oladipo being out a lot of the season, he helped that scoring load. You had no Oladipo. Bogdanovich left as well, but yet Indiana was still up in the 5 spot in the East. And he's part of the reason why, because of his scoring. He's just a great player.
Yeah, I would agree with that testament. TJ Warren deserves to be a top 7 pick in this draft. So let's recap the first half of the lottery here. Joel Embiid going 1st to Cleveland. Nikola Jokic going 2nd to Milwaukee. Aaron Gordon going 3rd to Philly. Zach LaVine going 4th to the Magic. Andrew Wiggins going number 5 to Utah. Marcus Smart going 6 to Boston. And TJ Warren going number 7 to the Lakers. Yeah. So where did the Sacramento Kings go here with the number 8 selection, Chris?
These are all as this goes on, it gets harder and harder because it's just there's a lot of just good players. And I'm looking at the position that they drafted. They drafted a guard. So I'm going to look for a guard that could replace him. And I'm going back into the 2nd round.
Interesting.
Spencer Dinwiddie at 8.
Ooh, Spencer Dinwiddie, Sacramento. Why Spencer Dinwiddie here at number 8?
Yeah, he is. Last couple of years, he has been proving to be one of the best 6-man guards in the league. He has been a straight-up scorer for Brooklyn. He could start. He could come off the bench. Do both. He's mostly a bench player, but if you need him to start, he can come in there. He could be instant. He's instant offense, and he's a great 3-point shooter. And he's been part of the reason why Brooklyn has been good, especially last year was good. Was a playoff team. Was part of his emergence last year. Was part of the reason why they're a playoff team. Even without having a star player, because he was one of their top 2 options as a scorer, maybe even one of their best options to score because they didn't really have much. they were a great offensive team, but they just couldn't play defense. But I think, and they needing a guard position for Sacramento, it'd be a good. He's the best guard available, in my opinion.
Now, Ross, do you
Yeah.
believe that Spencer Dinwiddie is the best guard available right now?
100% think he is. I think there was only really one other option you could fight over, maybe a Gary Harris. But based on this year, I just feel like Spencer Dinwiddie is the better guard. Because Gary Harris just never took that jump. I think he became second option to a Jamal Murray, who I think is a superior player. I think Dinwiddie is the correct option here if you're going to go for a guard. But Gary Harris was definitely a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you have Gary Harris at number 9, Chris?
The Charlotte Hornets. Those were the two. That was the two ones I was looking against. I'll take Gary Harris because I still think he has potential to be a good guard in this league. But I think he may need another system. He may need to be in a different system. He might need to be in a different place to prove that. Because I think Denver has just way too much like talent, and especially younger talent too, because they're all around the same age.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think he'll ever get a chance to shine as much in Denver. But he's still an amazing defensive player. I will never doubt that. He can guard. But the offensive end, I think he still needs to improve on.
I think Gary Harris is good. I think that this is a bit high for him at number 9. I'm going to be honest. I don't think 19-9 is the jump that he should be making. I think that he should be in the lottery. I don't know about this high, though. I think that he's good, not great. I think there's better players on the board. That to me is really all there is to it. I think that there are better players on the board here. You'll find out who it is when they come up in the podcast. But for me, I think Gary Harris right here, a bit high. I understand it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like flabbergasted or shocked by this decision. But I think that there could have been a better choice here for Charlotte to make it at number 9. But it's your draft, Chris, and you have every right to pick him. So Gary Harris goes number 9 to Charlotte. What about number 10, where the Philadelphia 76ers, who traded this pick to Orlando, so this will go to the Orlando Magic. Who did they get? They had Zach LaVine at number 4, so who did they get at number 10?
Oh man, this is another tough one. Because I'm also thinking of position too, of what the needed position would be. They've drafted, obviously. They have centers on their roster.
Elfrid Payton.
So yeah, Elfrid Payton. So it's a guard, but there isn't much of a guard. There's not much of a guard availability right now. So a lot of the guards are kind of like gone. But I'm gonna have to take. I'm between people. But
so who are you between? Talk out loud.
I'm between Clint Capella.
Okay.
One, and I'm between him, and I'm also. And it's gonna sound weird. I'm also between Rodney Hood because I still like his scoring.
Okay. I think there's someone you're just missing.
I think there is a couple.
There's two people you're missing, in my opinion, that are very obvious next picks. I don't know if me and Jeremy are the same too.
Yeah.
But
let's hear them, Ross. Who is Chris? Who should Chris be going for here?
It's two very simple options. You got Julius Randle or Yusuf Nurkic, in my opinion, as the next two picks. We could go by position. We could figure something out. I know they went with Payton, but to me, Randle, no matter how much you want to make fun of him and he plays for the Knicks, is still a really good player in this league. And Joseph Nurkic, before the injury and before he was traded, he was killing in Portland. He's still a really solid big man. And I know big men, we said they died in this league. Well, they were the first 2 picks in this draft. So obviously they have some kind of importance in this league. I think those are the 2 next best players. I love Rodney Hood, very underappreciated. But to me, I'd put Randle next, if not Nurkic, just because he's a very dynamic player. He's built very big. He's very strong, but he's very fast, and he can shoot and can play defense. I know he might have a commitment issue, it seems like, and doesn't take his game too seriously to go to the next level, but he's a baller, man. He could still drop 20 and 10 on your head on almost any given night. And I think he's just the logical next option. If not, I would have drafted him earlier, but he's definitely the next option to me, Julius Randle.
It's interesting because this draft has a lot of good players in it. Not a lot of great players.
A lot of good players.
A lot of good players. So this is why I understand why, Chris, you're having a difficult time with this. For me, you think of Nurkic and you think of Randall. I actually have two very different options. I think Capella is a worthy option here. He's who I would have picked at number 9 for Charlotte. Or Jeremy Grant's still on the board. Jeremy Grant was 39 in this draft, and he was traded.
I
traded first round picks in the last 12 months. So just that to me shows a sign of value. And not just Clint Capella wasn't traded just for a first round pick. He was traded for several players and a first round pick. So to me, that's value. And he should be a top 10 pick. And if he isn't, then that's highway robbery. But it's up to you, Chris. It's not my draft; it's yours. So
I'm having
going with at number 10.
I'm probably going to go with Clint Capella just because of just more proven, and he's been on more winning than the other players.
Excellent.
I think he fits. I think he fits a role. He knows his role. He knows he's a shot blocker and he's a lob machine.
Love that.
He knows what he is.
All right, so let's keep the train going. On number 11, the Nuggets had this pick. They traded Doug McDermott to Chicago with this pick. But who's going at number 11? And we'll assume that the trade still goes to the Bulls. Who's going to the Bulls at number 11?
I'm gonna go with Nurkic right there.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think Nurkic. If Nurkic didn't get hurt, I think he'd be seen on the same level as Clint Capella, if not better. I think he's solid player. Good pick at number 11. But let's move to number 12 now. Who you got at number 12?
Going to the Orlando Magic. I'm gonna go with
this trade one. This is a trade to Philly, so this pick would be going to Philly.
So the Philly gets this. So this one I would go with. Now this one I would go with Julius Randle.
There we go. I was like, if he doesn't get Randle here, we're gonna have an issue. Gotta eventually pick him.
Yeah. It's been like order. Order has been my problem. Like players, I know what the players I want. It's just order has been my problem because they're all like viewed as like almost on same levels ish for a lot of them.
Honestly, like it's 1A, 1B, or no, it's 1A, 1B with Embiid and Jokic, and then it's 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E, 2F. They're all very similar. And honestly, if we did this draft there's infinite number of possibilities with this draft that would be deemed acceptable, I feel. So Randall goes number 12 to Philly. The Minnesota Timberwolves on the clock with number 13. So who you got going there?
This one I do have Jeremy Grant.
All right. Great name. Bad spelling, but great name. He goes to Minnesota with that pick. And he was picked number 39. So this is a 26th pick jump for Jeremy Grant. It's a pretty solid jump. But who is your final selection of the lottery for the Phoenix Suns that are on the clock right now?
I'm going to go with Rodney Hood at 14.
Rodney Hood at 14. I think it's a good pick as well. Rodney Hood has had some struggle in his career with injuries and such, but this is a good pick right here. Rob, who was left out of the lottery that you believe has an argument to go into the lottery?
So definitely one I would have in somewhere, Bogdanovich.
Mm-hmm.
I would have really liked to see. I think he's a really good up-and-coming young player. I think he took a couple years off before he came over, but he's been killing it over.
He played in Europe until
2017. Yeah. He's averaging about 14 points per game over the last 2 years, shooting about 37%, so solid. He's just a very good young player. I maybe would have wanted him over a Hood, just because I think he has a little more potential, and we've seen a little bit more from him. Mm-hmm. Besides that, maybe a Dario Saric, because he had a couple good years, but I could see how you could leave him out because it seems like he's lost a little relevance in the league. But overall, very solid picks, Chris. I think I would have liked to see Bogdan, but I think we basically got the same people. Maybe McDermott could have been in there, but we got basically the same people.
Yeah.
Different spots.
Chris, I think you had probably the toughest job out of the three of us. Jordan Clarkson, Jordan Clarkson could be a lottery
Jordan
pick to
Clarkson
me.
definitely be there.
I believe
Somebody else that could have been there. Dwight Powell is also somebody
Dwight
you could have.
Powell, Joe Harris, Kyle Anderson got a boatload of money. There's a lot of guys that
I
could
just
have
think it's
gone.
consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency was kind of my big deal.
Right. And you know what? There's only 14 players can be a lottery pick each year in the whole world. And so you can only imagine how competitive it is. And that's why there's so many good players that seep out of the lottery, especially in drafts like these where the talent level between each player is just so tight. And I think we see that as well in the draft that I selected for us. So we started with 2011. Then we're moving into 2014. It's a 3-year gap. And I'm putting another 3-year gap here. And I'm going with the 2017 draft. This is the group of players that is due for a major contract extension, max contract extensions in the offseason, whenever that happens. So this is a very solid draft. It's a very popular draft. A lot of Americans in this draft, not a big international draft, but there's a lot of talent here that isn't just in the top couple picks. There are only 3 All-Stars out of this bunch, and they go in my top 3. I think it's very clear who the top 3 picks are for me in this draft, and then after that is where it gets very difficult. We'll start out with the first pick, and Philly's on the clock here. Philly had the number 3 pick. They traded up to number 1 to make sure they got their guy in Markelle Fultz. Markelle Fultz is not the pick you make here, but the pick you make here at number 1 is Jason Tatum. I think he is absolutely the best player in this draft, and he will prove that as the years go on. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, I 100% agree with that.
I agree. I don't know about 100%. I can make the argument for for Donovan Mitchell. After the first year, you would have guessed Donovan Mitchell, but it seems like Tatum's just starting to get to the next level where Mitchell's maybe not plateaued, but the acceleration, it's not as exponential as it was when it started. It's a slow but gradual increase, but I think Tatum just has the most potential. So I like Tatum at 1. I'll agree with that.
Donovan Mitchell has benefited from being the best player on his team his whole career.
Exactly. Yeah.
Jason Tatum hasn't had that luxury, and he played second fiddle to Kyrie. And as he's going into his prime, he's busting into that role. So that's why I think Tatum is not seen maybe as the top player. Donovan Mitchell's the best player on the Jazz and will continue to be the best player for the Jazz for years and years to come, especially once he signs this extension in the offseason. But Jason Tatum, I feel like, is the more talented player, which is why he goes here number 1 to Philly. Then you have the Lakers on the clock. Donovan Mitchell is the pick here. It would have been a very unconventional pick for the Lakers to make, especially considering how Lonzo Ball was mocked to the Lakers at the beginning of the draft process, and no one wanted to take him out of that because there was so much pressure for him to go to the Lakers from the whole Ball family, from LeVar, from from him going to UCLA. There was so much pressure for the Lakers to take Lonzo Ball. If they didn't take Lonzo Ball, they would have gotten so much flack for it. And funny enough, they traded Lonzo Ball 3 years later. So to me, it's very clear Donovan Mitchell here is the number 2 pick in this draft.
Yep.
And for my number 3, this one there is arguments for, but I think you guys will agree with me on this one.
Yeah, I think I'm about to say, I think I know who you want.
Bam Adebayo goes here at number 3 to Boston. I'm not sure you guys are happy with him going to Boston, but I think you guys are very happy that he's here at the number 3 pick.
Happy he was left to number 14 when it initially happened. I went to that draft party, and I did not know who that was. When they drafted him, I don't know who I wanted. I wanted someone. I don't remember who I wanted, but I was like, who the hell is Bam Adebayo? And I am happy that I was beyond wrong on that. But yes, 3rd pick for sure needs to be Bam.
Yep. I mean, he is like your prototypical center. He could he's like the prototypical center nowadays. He's a great athlete. He can play great. He's one of the best young defensive players in the league. I mean, he can pass. He's one of the best passing. He's actually one of the best passing big men right now. He could maybe say top 5 or 6 passing big men right now. I mean, but I mean, I actually wanted John Collins.
Yeah. In for the Heat in this draft or right here at number 3?
For the Heat. For the Heat, I wanted John Collins.
Oh, I'm
but,
about to say, I was like,
yeah, for John Collins, I want him to go to the Heat. But I knew who Bam was, but I was like, I was kind of like, about the pick. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
he may be good, but I was like, I don't know if I agree with it.
Yeah. So this is the top 3 right here. It's Tatum, Mitchell, Adebayo.
100%.
And what I've said in previously in the podcast is I think it's important to note faces of the franchise. And I think that is a good litmus test as to where they should go earlier in the draft. So the Suns are here on the clock at number 4. They went with Josh Jackson in the original draft, but I don't have them taking Josh Jackson here in the redraft. I believe they go out and they get De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo's teammate at Kentucky with the number 4 pick. To me, Fox is exactly what they need with next to Devin Booker. He's extremely quick. He can go to the rim, and then I think he match up really well playing with Devin Booker. And I think it's a shame that they don't get to play together. That's what Devin Booker's been missing is a solid point guard. With him. I mean, he's morphed into a point guard on his own, but I think that if you found a nice point guard next to Devin Booker, like they have with Ricky Rubio, then you can work into something like that. So imagine if it was De'Aaron Fox, someone you could build on for years and years and years, and not just Ricky Rubio, who's going to be around for the short term, but not necessarily the long term. So to me, De'Aaron Fox makes a lot of sense here at number 4 for Phoenix. Now, we get to number 5. Sacramento wanted to take De'Aaron Fox. They don't get that luxury here. This is where it gets kind of interesting because this was a point guard heavy draft, but a lot of these point guards have just been completely decimated by the position they've been put in. I think Lonzo Ball was in a rough position in LA with the Lakers. Markelle Fultz was in a rough position in Philly. But to me, I think that point guard, there's a lot of decent point guards. There's not a lot of good point guards in this draft. And I think after De'Aaron Fox, it's kind of there's a drop off there. Maybe Lonzo Ball's a good number 2 and Markelle Fultz right there. But to me, I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm actually going to go with the person that I think has a lot of potential and doesn't get a whole lot of attention because of the team that he plays for. So I'm going to go at number 5 with Jonathan Isaac from Florida State. I think he's played tremendously on the defensive side of the ball in the last year or so, and he's improving. And he's going to be an All-NBA defender someday. I absolutely, wholeheartedly believe that. And Sacramento could use some of that defense on the wing. So Jonathan Isaac is where I go here. I think that the vibe I'm picking up from you two is that you guys don't agree with me. So I want to get your opinion as to why Jonathan Isaac is too high at number 5.
You want to go first, Chris?
Yeah, I'll go first. I do like him. I actually thought if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, he may have actually been All NBA defensive maybe this year potentially. One of those 2 teams. He could have had a chance at that if he didn't get hurt. But are there a few players I may have put ahead of him?
I have more than a few.
More than a few. Okay, bring it to me, Ross.
I mean, I can name 2 very easily: John Collins, Lauri Markkanen.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what, and I could probably argue a couple other ones if I really needed to. Lonzo, I could argue a lot. Kuzma, but to me, Collins is the obvious next pick. He's this season alone averaging 22 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
Although, albeit on a really not a great team, he doesn't have a lot of options. But 22 and 10, he's the next best player on this draft. Whether you want to argue that Isaac has the potential to be one of the best defensive players in the league we can have the argument. But right now, with what Collins is able to do at this moment, he's the next player taking on this draft.
And John Collins is my number 6 pick. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, I couldn't put John Collins past number 6 on this one. No. I was debating between Isaac and Collins, but I feel like Isaac has the edge in terms of the defense. And I think the reason why he's not an offensive player is because the offense doesn't go through him. I feel like if they wanted to, they could have the offense go through with him. They're working on trying to get ways to have the offense go through Fultz and they're still working on that, and they have the offense going through an all-star center with Vucevic. So Isaac is there to play defense, and he knows his role, and he's playing his role very well. That's why I have him ahead of John Collins.
Gotcha.
And his play has led to success. His play has proven to be successful because he has made Orlando better. John Collins can't necessarily say the same thing about Atlanta. I think he's very good, and I think if you put him on a contending team right now, he'd be a starter, and they would be better. For a team that needs a stretch 5 or a 4, I think he'd be a perfect pick on the Rockets. Like, I think that if you put John Collins on the Rockets, that's scary. But John Collins to me, he will be a very good player in this league. When Atlanta does become at their peak, he will be a big reason why. But for right now, I have Isaac ahead of Collins at 5 and 6. So if we go to number 7, this was a tough pick too. With Fultz and Lonzo Ball on the board, I still believe they should be lottery picks and they will be selected at some point. But for me, I think that I'm gonna do what Chris did with Marcus Smart. I'm gonna keep the pick here at number 7 for Lauri Markkanen, and he's gonna go.
Yep, like the pick.
Mm-hmm.
So he was originally supposed to go to Minnesota. Then the Jimmy Butler trade happens. Obviously, if we kept going with the timeline, Jimmy Butler wouldn't have even been in Chicago to begin with, probably. He would have stayed in Cleveland. There would have been no trade here, but we're not using past timelines that we've created in this podcast for future ones. So Lauri Markkanen is traded to Chicago with the 7th pick, definitely where he should belong. Now we get to number 8, and the New York Knicks are on the clock. And this is, I think, if he can't be in LA, if he cannot be in LA, I think New York is a very good place for him. So with that being said, the New York Knicks select Kyle Kuzma.
I'm there.
I think y'all were gonna think I was gonna say Lonzo Ball, and I was about to. But then I realized that Kuzma's still there. And keep in mind this: the Lakers are trying to trade for Anthony Davis a year ago, and the one player they said you cannot have is Kyle Kuzma. They really do like Kyle Kuzma in LA, and I think that he would be. I think in New York he'd make a lot of sense, especially because they love their power forwards there. So I think it'd be a good pick for New York. They need a guy on the wing at this point. I think that they've had struggles with picking guys early because they get guys that don't really fit their system. I think Ntilikina is good. I think he's in a bad position with New York. I think he's just not coached well and just not in a good position. And I think that's a big reason why he's been seen as a player that isn't worth the number 8 overall pick. So for me, that's why you put Kuzma here. Kuzma is seen as one of the bigger steals in this draft. I would tend to agree. He is one of the top 10 players in this draft. So he goes here at number 8 to New York. Just to recap my picks so far, Tatum goes number 1 to Philly. Donovan Mitchell goes number 2 to the Lakers. Bam Adebayo number 3 to the Celtics. De'Aaron Fox number 4 to the Suns. Jonathan Isaac number 5 to Sacramento. John Collins number 6 to Orlando. Lauri Markkanen stays at number 7 going to Chicago. And Kyle Kuzma goes number 8 to New York. So we have our final 6 picks here. The Dallas Mavericks are on the clock. They took Dennis Smith, and he was traded for Kristaps Porzingis in that major trade a little over, almost 2 years ago. So it's interesting because this draft has a lot of guys. This is in the top 9 picks. There are 4 guys that didn't even make it to year 4 or year 3 with their original team. And Dennis Smith is the last one in this bunch to not stick with their original team. So Dennis Smith also has just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Dallas didn't need a point guard. They drafted him anyway. New York, he goes to New York. They don't need 7 point guards, and he's kind of stuck there. But I think that Dallas is going to take another point guard here. And in my opinion, it's the best point guard outside of De'Aaron Fox that's been proven so far in the league, and that's why Lonzo Ball is the pick here at number 9, Dallas.
Okay.
What do y'all think of Lonzo Ball going to Dallas?
I think he's the best player available, let alone the fact that he fits perfectly into a Dallas system. You have a great coach in Carlisle over in Dallas. I think the discipline of a Dallas organization is what he needed. I think maybe the LA lights were a little too bright for him coming out. I think Dallas would be a good place to be, and I think a year with a veteran like Dirk, even though completely different positions, is still going to be helpful. It's still going to teach you a lot of how to navigate in the league, especially with all the outside noise that Lonzo is having with his family, his father, and he's a very good point guard. It's hard. It's no other way to say it. He is. When you designed a point guard in the 1980s, you made Lonzo Ball. He's not selfish. He's not a shooter. He's here to orchestrate the offense and make sure you get the best touches possible. And I think it's a great pick for the Dallas Mavericks.
I think it's difficult though when you have a point guard that can't shoot in the 2020s.
100%. And I agree. It is difficult.
And that's why he was traded. That's part of the reason why he was traded. I mean, not obviously the full reason, but I think a big reason was because they got a chance to get Anthony Davis. But also, like, the Lakers had a choice. Which of the baby Lakers do we want to keep? And they chose Kuzma, their 27th overall pick, over Lonzo Ball, their number 2 overall pick.
Yeah,
I think that says...
Well, he works better with LeBron. I think is the way you think about that. It's another guy to kick to.
Yeah, but you would think that a point guard, a guard, not a forward, where Anthony Davis is a forward, LeBron James is a forward, you would think that they would need a guard next to them, a defensive-minded guard. Kuzma is an offensive-minded player, and Kuzma's numbers have taken a hit this year because he's had a crowded front court with LeBron and with Anthony Davis. But, you know, to me, I think that Kuzma was a much more natural fit to trade to New Orleans, but they ended up wanting to keep Kuzma that bad. And I don't know if it's more keeping Kuzma that bad or just they were willing to get rid of Lonzo over Kuzma.
I think it also had to do with maybe just fit. I think fit was a thing. I don't think Lonzo played well with LeBron. Kuzma can play well with LeBron. And also, Kuzma can close games, too. Yeah. A lot better. He's a good closing. He can close you a game. He can hit you. He can hit a big shot for you if you need it.
That's true. So we'll move on now to number 10. Move on here to number 10. Zach Collins was the pick here. He would be traded to the Trailblazers. Trailblazers need a big. They have their backcourt that they want to stick with. They need a big man. They either need a big man or they need a solid wing player. They're working on getting Nurkic in there. Ultimately, with this pick, though, I decided to go with the big man because that's who they selected in the draft, and I went with Jared Allen.
Yes.
Originally in Brooklyn, now in Portland. Allen went pretty deep in the draft, number 22. He flies up 12 spots to number 12 here with this pick. Y'all seem to be very happy with this pick.
Yeah, highly underrated big man. Yeah, and it's exactly what they needed. An absolute stalwart in the middle of the paint. You're not really going to get around him. He leads the league in impressive blocks. I don't know if that's a stat, but I'm making it a stat. He's blocked some people that seemed unblockable. He's blocked a LeBron James, a Blake Griffin. So I think he's the perfect guy to have in your paint. I think perfect fit.
And he doesn't need to be. And he doesn't need to be a starter either. Like he likes his role on the bench. Like he likes his role as like a shorter minute person in like the low 20s. That's where he's more effective.
That's true. So there you go. That's Jared Allen, number 10. That rounds out my top 10. Got 4 more picks to go here. We'll keep going with the number 11 pick. Malik Monk was the selection here at number 11. I cannot say that Malik Monk is going to stay with the Hornets, but I have to go with a different guy here. I'm between a couple of different players here. I'm between, Markelle Fultz still on this board.
Yes.
And he does need to go in these next couple picks. If he does not go in the lottery,
blasphemous.
I don't know if he's the 11th best player in this draft. He's proven to be the 11th best player in this draft yet. I think that he can. I think he can still wait a couple more picks. I think there's a couple guys here that I would take ahead of him, and I believe one of those guys is. I have a couple of different options. I'm thinking about Josh Hart. I'm thinking about Dylan Brooks. But I'm gonna go with Josh Hart. Josh Hart, like you mentioned, Chris, earlier, a good sixth man is worth a lottery pick, and that's what Josh Hart should be in his career. Don't be surprised if Josh Hart is ever sixth man of the year in his career. I truly believe that. He has the potential to be up there. And I think that I think that's a ceiling. And I think that Charlotte could use a guy like that. Of course, Charlotte's looking for everything, I guess. I feel like they always tend to draft in the 11 to 14 range every year, it seems like. But to me, this is where they have to go. They went shooting guard in the original draft. They're going to go shooting guard in this redraft here. Josh Hart, who flies up 19 spots to number 11. Then at number 12, Pistons are on the clock. I'm also going to pass here on Markelle Fultz. I'm going to go with another wing guy. I'm going to go with OG Anunoby, who I think got a lot of flack for kind of taking a backseat last year because Kawhi Leonard, best player in the league, was taking minutes. But he's back in the starting job this year. He's a much stronger player. I feel like he's just been injured. I think that's his big caveat is he's been injured. So ultimately that's why OG Anunoby went 23 in his draft. He was injured coming into the draft. I think if he wasn't injured, he might have gone a lot higher. And Toronto kind of stole him at 23. So maybe things change here. But he goes to Detroit at number 12. It's an 11 pick jump for OG Anunoby. Number 13, it's the Denver Nuggets trading this pick to Utah Jazz. This is where Donovan Mitchell was picked. And here are my final two picks here. One of them is Markelle Fultz. One of them is Monte Morris. Monte Morris, he went pretty late in the draft. He was one of the last 10 picks. He played 4 years. I think that was what hurt him. He played 4 years at Iowa State, but he was really good in those 4 years at Iowa State. He was practically a starter in his last 3 years, averaged 16 points a game in his senior year, and worked his way to Denver. In his second year, went from 3 points a game to playing all 82 games and playing. So it's essentially his rookie year. Last year, he had 10 points a game. And he's often seen as, he makes a start once in a while when Jamal Murray's hurt. He started 8 games this year. He's averaging 8 points a game. To me, that's worth a lottery pick. But I'm going to go with Markelle Fultz here at number 13, going to Utah. They need a guard, and that's where he goes. He goes number 13 to Utah, and then I have Monte Morris at number 14 going to the Miami Heat as Goran Dragic's backup. And there you have it. That's my 2017 redraft. I'll recap it for the listeners. It is Jason Tatum number 1 to Philly, Donovan Mitchell number 2 to the Lakers, Bam Adebayo number 3 to the Celtics, De'Aaron Fox number 4 to the Suns, Jonathan Isaac number 5 to the Kings, John Collins number 6 to the Magic, Lauri Markkanen staying at number 7 to the Bulls, Kyle Kuzma going number 8 to the Knicks, Lonzo Ball going 9 to the Mavericks, Jarrett Allen going number 10 to the Portland Trailblazers, number 11 Josh Hart going to the Charlotte Hornets, OG Anunoby going number 12 to the Detroit Pistons, Markelle Fultz going number 13 to the Jazz, and Monte Morris going number 14 to the Miami Heat. That's a 37-pick jump. There's a lot of guys that I picked in that late first round and in the second round even that belong in this lottery here. So yeah, that's all that we wrote, folks. This is an hour and a half later of us redrafting three of the most dynamic draft classes of the 2010s. Ross and Chris, thank you so much for coming on board here with me today. We need to do some more stuff like this in the future because this was dynamic analysis, strong content. Love to see it from you guys. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
be sure to not miss any of our shows from the Hitting the Field podcast, Hitting the Crew, Take Me Out to the podcast. You can do so by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Hitting the Field or downloading our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter to not miss a single episode or anything that's going on with Hitting the Field. We can't wait to be back in the fall with our normal shows, and I can't wait to see what we've got going. We're going to have a lot of podcasts in this next 10 days. We have 8 hours of coverage over the next 10 days on a bunch of stuff from current events to what's going on in the sports world to fantasy podcasts like these. Everything you could ask for, you're going to get here at the Hitting the Field podcast. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. From your host, Jeremy Brener, signing off, and we'll catch you on the flip side.